The last human male woke up in a bunker full of alien women. The alarm hit me before my eyes even opened. A screaming pulse of red light that made my skull throb like it had been cracked open and put back together in a hurry. I gasped for air, and my lungs burned like I had never used them before. Something metal was clamped around my chest, and I ripped it away without thinking, my hands shaking so hard I nearly tore the skin underneath. A voice above me shouted words I did not understand, sharp and fast. And then another voice joined it, higher, panicked. I blinked hard, trying to force my eyes to focus. And the first thing I saw was not a ceiling or a wall. It was a face. Pale gray skin, eyes too large and too dark, staring down at me like I was something that should not exist. I scrambled backwards so fast I fell off the table and hit the floor hard, pain shooting up my spine. My hand found a piece of broken metal beside me, and I gripped it like a weapon, even though my whole body was shaking. "Stay back," I said, my voice cracking. "Stay back. I mean it." The gray-skinned woman did not move closer. She raised both hands slowly, palms open, and said something again, this time slower, softer. A small device on her wrist blinked, and a second later, words came out of it in my own language. A little delayed, a little flat, but clear enough to understand. "He is conscious. He is afraid. Do not approach him." I stared at the device, then at her face, then past her. And that was when the panic really hit me. Because I was not alone with just one stranger. I was surrounded. 5 other women stood around the room, all different, all clearly not human, watching me with expressions I could not read. One had skin like polished stone. Another had markings down her arms that pulsed faint blue light with every heartbeat. None of them looked like a threat exactly, but none of them looked familiar either. And that terrified me more than any weapon could have. "Where am I?" I said, gripping the metal shard tighter. "What is this place? Where are the others? Where is my crew?" The tallest of them stepped forward, the one with stone-like skin. Her voice, through the translator, was calm, deliberate, like she had rehearsed this exact moment. "You are safe. My name is Ellen. We are not here to hurt you, but you need to listen carefully, because there is very little time." Something about the way she said very little time made my stomach drop. I lowered the metal shard an inch, not because I trusted her, but because the alarm was still screaming and red light was still pulsing through the room. And somewhere deep in my chest, I understood that whatever was happening was bigger than 6 strangers and one terrified man on a cold floor. "Talk fast, then," I said. Ellen crouched down slowly, keeping her hands visible, and began. "You were found in a cryopod 11 days ago, buried under collapsed rock nearly 40 meters deep. The pod had been sealed for over 100 years. We do not know how you survived, but you did. And that makes you the only human we have found alive in this entire system." I laughed. A short, broken sound. It was easier than screaming. "That's not possible. There were thousands of us. Whole colonies, ships. My crew was right behind me when the hull breach happened. They should have made it into the pods too." "They did not," said the woman with the glowing markings, her voice gentler than I expected. "My name is Priya. I am sorry. We searched every registered pod location in the system. Yours was the only one still active." The room tilted around me, and for a second I could not breathe. I thought of faces, voices, a hand grabbing my shoulder and shoving me toward the pod bay while the ship groaned and screamed around us. I thought of someone yelling for me to go, to not wait, to just go. "That alarm," I said, forcing the words out through a throat that felt like it was closing. "What is that alarm for?" The 6 women exchanged a look, and that was worse than any answer, because it meant they had been hoping I would not ask yet. "It is a proximity alert," Ellen said. "Something is moving through the lower levels of this bunker. Something that should not be here." I pushed myself up off the floor, ignoring the ache in every joint, and forced my legs to hold my weight. "What kind of something?" "We do not know exactly," said a smaller woman near the back, her voice tight and fast. Her skin had a faint blue tint, and her eyes darted toward the door every few seconds. "My name is Mira. We detected movement 2 levels down 20 minutes ago. Then the alarm triggered on its own. Whatever it is not one of us, and it is not registered in this facility's systems." A low sound rolled through the floor, distant but unmistakable, like something heavy dragging across stone. Every woman in that room went rigid. "We need to move," said the tallest of the remaining two, her posture shifting into something sharp and ready, like a soldier bracing for contact. Her name, I would learn seconds later, was Talia. She had a crest of dark feather-like ridges running along her scalp, and right now every one of them was standing on end. "Move where?" I said. "I don't even know where I am." "There is an evacuation route through the east corridor," said the last woman, older than the rest, her voice steady in a way that told me she had been in situations like this before. Her name was Doreen. "It leads to a surface exit half a kilometer from here. If we move now, we can reach it before whatever is down there reaches us." The dragging sound came again, closer this time, and with it came a low vibration that I felt through the soles of my bare feet. "I don't have shoes," I said absurdly, because my brain latched onto the smallest, stupidest detail instead of the enormous, terrifying one. Priya was already moving, pulling a pair of boots from a supply crate against the wall and tossing them to me. "Put them on and let's go," she said. "Talk later." I laced them with shaking hands while Talia moved to the door and eased it open, checking the corridor in both directions before waving us forward. The hallway beyond was narrow, lit by strips of pale light embedded in the walls, and the air smelled like rust and something faintly chemical. We moved fast. 6 women and one confused, terrified man who barely understood what was happening to his own life, let alone theirs. Doreen took point, her steps quiet and sure. Mira stayed close to me, glancing over her shoulder every few seconds like she expected something to appear behind us at any moment. "How long have you all been down here?" I asked, keeping my voice low. 6 years, Ellen answered from just ahead of me. "This bunker was part of an old Alliance network. We came to study it. We did not expect to find you, and we certainly did not expect this." "This being what, exactly?" I said. Nobody answered right away. And then the lights above us flickered once, twice, and died completely. Darkness swallowed the corridor whole. For one heartbeat, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then something screamed. It was not a human scream. It was low and grinding, like metal being torn apart slowly, and it echoed from somewhere behind us, closer than I wanted to admit. Talia grabbed my arm and hauled me forward before I even registered that my legs had locked in place. "Run," she said, and this time there was no calm left in her voice at all. We ran. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, dim red strips along the floor guiding our path, and I followed the shapes of the women ahead of me because I had no other choice. My bare feet were sore inside the 2 oversized boots. My chest burned, and every few seconds that grinding scream came again, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, like whatever it was could not quite decide where we were. "Down here," Doreen called out, and we swung around a corner so fast I nearly slammed into the wall. Ahead of us, the corridor split into 2 paths, one leading up a shallow ramp, the other descending into darkness. "We go up," Ellen said immediately. "That is not the way to the surface exit," Mira said, panic edging into her voice. "I know," Ellen said. "But that thing is between us and the east corridor now. We heard it move that way." Talia swore under her breath in a language I did not understand but understood perfectly anyway. "Then up it is," she said. "Move." We took the ramp at a dead sprint, and behind us the grinding scream rose into something closer to a roar, followed by the unmistakable sound of metal buckling, like a door being forced open by something far stronger than it should have been able to withstand. I did not look back. I had learned that much already, even in the short time since waking up in this nightmare, that looking back never helped, and often cost seconds you did not have. The ramp opened into a wide room filled with old equipment, covered in dust and shadows, and Doreen skidded to a stop so suddenly that Priya nearly crashed into her. "Dead end," Doreen said, her voice flat with disbelief. "This was not on the schematic." "The schematic is 100 years old," Mira snapped. "Things change." The roar came again, and this time it was close enough that I felt it in my teeth. Talia spun toward a maintenance hatch set into the far wall, low and narrow, barely large enough for a person to crawl through. "There," she said. "It leads to the old ventilation system. It should connect to the east corridor from below." "Should," Ellen repeated. "It is the only option we have," Talia said, already moving toward it. One by one, they dropped to their knees and crawled into the hatch. Doreen first, then Priya, then Mira, each of them disappearing into the dark space beyond. I hesitated for half a second, staring at the gap, feeling every instinct in my body scream that crawling into a tight, dark tunnel while something monstrous hunted us was possibly the worst idea I had ever heard. Then the roar came again, right behind us in the room we had just left, and I stopped hesitating. I dropped down and crawled in after Ellen, with Talia sealing the hatch behind us as best she could, though it would not hold for long against something that could tear metal doors apart. The tunnel was tight, barely wide enough for my shoulders, and the metal beneath my hands was cold and slick with old dust. Somewhere ahead of me, I could hear the others moving, quick, controlled breaths, the scrape of hands and knees against metal. "Keep moving," Ellen whispered from just behind me. "Do not stop, no matter what you hear." I gritted my teeth and kept moving, one hand in front of the other, my knees aching against the hard surface. Behind us, the hatch groaned and then buckled inward with a shriek of tearing metal, and I felt the vibration of it through my entire body. Something was forcing its way into the tunnel. "Faster!" Talia hissed from behind me. "It is coming through." I pushed myself forward as fast as the cramped space would allow, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard it hurt. Ahead of me, Doreen called out that she could see an opening, a grate leading down into another corridor, and relief flooded through me for exactly 1 second before something slammed against the tunnel wall so hard that dust rained down from every seam. "It is right behind me!" Talia shouted, her voice sharp with something I had not heard from her before. Real fear. "Move, move, move." Priya was yelling from ahead. Then light spilled into the tunnel as the grate below us was kicked open, and one by one we dropped down into the corridor beneath, landing hard on the metal floor. Talia came through last, twisting herself out of the tunnel just as something huge and dark lunged toward the opening above us. I caught only a glimpse of it. A shape too large for the space it was trying to fit through. Limbs that bent in ways that made my stomach turn. Eyes that seemed to glow faintly even in the dim red light. "Go!" Talia screamed, shoving me forward. This time, I did not need to be told twice. We sprinted down the corridor, all 6 of us, and behind us the creature tore the grate wide open with a shriek of metal, dropping into the corridor after us with a heavy thud that shook the floor. "The east corridor is ahead," Doreen shouted, pointing toward a set of double doors at the far end, faint daylight visible through a crack where they did not quite seal shut. "Maybe less." The thing behind us roared again, and this time I heard something else in it. Something that sounded almost like frustration, like it was angry that we kept slipping away from it. I did not look back. I focused only on the doors ahead, on the sliver of daylight growing wider with every step. Mira stumbled, her foot catching on a piece of broken flooring, and she went down hard. Without thinking, I grabbed her arm and hauled her back up, nearly losing my own balance in the process, and we kept running together, her hand gripping mine so tight it hurt. "Thank you," she gasped. "Just run," I said, because it was the only thing my brain could manage. The doors were close now, close enough that I could see the shape of daylight clearly, harsh and bright compared to the dim red emergency lighting we had been running through. Ellen reached them first and threw her weight against the release mechanism, and the doors groaned, shuddered, and finally began to slide open. Behind us, the creature let out one final roar, closer than anything before it, and I felt something brush against my back, a claw or a limb, I never found out which, because Talia grabbed my shoulder and hurled me forward through the gap in the doors just as they finished opening. I hit the ground outside hard, rolling across gravel and dust, sunlight blinding me after so long in the dark. One by one, the others tumbled out behind me, and Doreen slammed her palm against a control panel beside the doors. They slid shut with a heavy final clang, sealing behind Talia as she cleared the threshold by less than a second. Something slammed against the sealed doors from the inside so hard the whole frame shook. And then, after a long, tense silence, nothing. No more roaring. No more grinding metal. Just the sound of 6 women and 1 man gasping for breath under an open sky. I lay on my back in the dirt, staring up at a pale, unfamiliar sun, my chest heaving, my hands still shaking. Beside me, Mira collapsed onto the ground too, laughing in a way that sounded more like relief than joy. Priya sat with her head in her hands, and Talia stood guard by the sealed doors, watching them warily even though nothing else was coming through. Ellen crouched down next to me, her expression softer now that we were finally, impossibly safe. "You did well," she said. "For someone who woke up an hour ago into all of this, you did very well." I laughed weakly, staring up at that strange sky. "An hour ago, I did not know any of you existed," I said. "An hour ago, I did not know my entire crew was gone, or that I was the last one, or that something like that thing could even exist. I do not think, well, is the word I would use." Doreen sat down heavily nearby, finally allowing herself a moment of stillness. "You survived 100 years of sleep that should have killed you," she said. "Then you survived the very first hour of being awake against something that has killed things far better armed than you. I would say, well, is exactly the right word." I did not have an answer for that. So I just lay there breathing, feeling the sun on my face for the first time in over a century, surrounded by 5 strangers who had somehow, in the space of 1 terrifying hour, stopped feeling quite so strange. Talia finally stepped back from the doors, satisfied that whatever had chased us was staying contained for now, and looked down at me with something like respect in her eyes. "Welcome to being awake," she said. "It does not usually start this fast or this loud." I managed a Real laugh this time, shaky but genuine, and slowly sat up, looking around at the unfamiliar landscape stretching out beyond the bunker entrance. Strange trees, a sky 1 shade too orange, and 6 women who an hour ago had been complete strangers, and who were now somehow the only reason I was still breathing. Whatever came next, I had a feeling it was not going to be simple. But for the first time since I had woken up screaming on that cold floor, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I was going to survive.